follows the instructions of James to the letter. But both Acts and the Pseudo-Corinthians realize Peter is under James. So the gospel presentation of Peter as the leader is really a retrospective, latter-day, Romanized portrait. I think that these Eastern texts are more clear on those points. Again, you don't have to agree with that. That's for you to be the final judge. You are the final arbiter. I'm just giving you a view. You've heard the other view, obviously, your whole life in one way or another. So, you know, to get a minority view such as mine is not too disconcerting. And you're the final person. You weigh the evidence. But at least we have some evidence to weigh here. Okay, so he's a daily bather, as the Essenes were. So I would just say, if it acts like a duck and looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. That these people were Essenes. And Essenes were what Christians were in Palestine. That's the first point I make in that book. And it's when they go overseas and get colonized, they become Christians as we know them. And so on. And
would you repeat that statement? The Essenes were like those that
were what Christians were in Palestine in the first century.
Can you spell Essene?
It's in Josephus. You got a copy of Josephus, I hope. I'm reading from the Jewish Warrior, book 2, Essenes. I couldn't read it from the other one, but this is, I should probably read it from your version. Let me read it from your version. I shouldn't be reading this one because I know this is hard one to follow. I got so many versions of the Jewish Warrior. 1, 2, I got 3 versions of the Jewish Warrior. This one is a collected one you can get cheap in any bookstore. I got actually a 4th one, in fact. This one here.
Oh, that's a pretty good.
Yeah, these are from church publications. You can get them in any church bookstore. They're worth having. And this is the Greek Hebrew one, so that Greek English one, so you know that if you need to look up a word, you can find it. And then this is the Penguin one that's been completely beaten to death over many years of use. Let me see if I can find that. I don't know. Here it is. So he says here, among the Jews there are 3 sects. 3 schools of thought whose adherents are called Pharisees, Sadducees, and Essenes respectively. I think this is chapter 7, page 135 in your translation. The Essenes profess a severe discipline. They are Jews by birth and particularly attached to each other. They eschew pleasure-seeking as a vice, regard temperance and mastery of passions as a virtue, scorn wedlock. They select other men's children while still pliable and teachable and fashion them after their own pattern. Not that they wish to do away with marriage as a means of continuing the race, but they are afraid of promiscuity of women and convinced that none of the sex remains faithful to one man. This is Josephus now. Contemptuous of wealth, they're the poor. James's community was called the poor. They are communists. They have communal property to perfection, and none of them will be found to be better off than the rest. The rules that novices admitted to the sect must surrender their property to the order. That's the common purse in early Christianity. So that among them neither humiliating poverty nor excessive wealth is ever seen, but each man's possessions go into the general pool, and that's a big point in Acts if you know your book of Acts. And as with the brothers there, you say, well, how come you pick and choose? Some things you accept, some things you don't. Well, things that make sense within the context of the period, why not entertain? There's nothing wrong with entertaining things that don't raise a question. You know, when we have other material elsewhere to validate that situation, it's only things like tablecloths coming down from heaven that you consider to be maybe romantic episodes, novelized episodes, to make a point. So you mean a tablecloth didn't come down and then it went right up again? Oh, I guess I should read that. I'm being unfair here to the book of Acts. This is classic. So you must, this is why we don't have great respect for the first part of the book of Acts until 1620. And I told you, what happens in 1620? The we document comes in. Let's see now. Let's see where we are. I guess it's chapter 10, actually, of Acts. And there was a certain man in Caesarea named Cornelius, a centurion of the Italica regiment, a pious man who feared God with all his household. The Roman centurion of the Italica regiment in Caesarea is a pious man, doing many good works for the people and praying to God continually. Well, who does that? That's a picture of James, actually. James does many good works and prays to God. I don't think Roman centurions from Caesarea were doing that, but you say, well, there is one maybe. Well, maybe in Mel Gibson's movies there may be a few, but I don't know. About the 9th hour, he saw a vision plainly, but I won't continue that. Now, meantime, Peter was on the rooftop staying with one Simon. And the angel who spoke, there's an angel in here who spoke to Cornelius. And he took 2 of his servants and sent them to Jaffa, which is, I said, 15 miles away or so. And I love this, and knows the hours, the 6th hour, and so on, to give it historical precision, the 9th hour. And anyway, Peter went up on the rooftop, and he became very hungry and wanted to eat. And they were making ready below. A trance fell on him. Let's see, what's the Greek here? Trance. And he beheld the heavens opening up, and a vessel coming down on him like a giant sheet tied at the 4 corners and being let down on the earth. And in it were all kinds of 4-footed animals of the earth and wild beasts and creeping things and the birds of the sky. And a voice came to him, "Get up, Peter." This is a great episode. This is a great, actually, visual episode. Peter said, "Oh no, Lord, I've never eaten anything profane or unclean." And again, the second time a voice came, "What God hath made clean, you should not make profane." And this took place 3 times. Then the vessel was taken back up to heaven. And even as Peter was bewildered as to what the vision he saw might mean, the servants of Cornelius were standing at the gate, and then he understood the meaning that he could go to the house of the Roman centurion. So I haven't lied to you about that episode, right? It's in there now. Okay. I don't deny the beauty and attractiveness of the episode. The artistic value is not in question. Okay, just a matter of whether you think it's historical. Such episodes. That's for you to determine your view of what you consider history is. Anyway, let's go back to Essenes. Where are we? Okay. So, oil they regard as polluting. When adherents arrive from elsewhere, I'm skipping here, all local resources are put at their disposal. When they travel, they carry no baggage, only weapons. They do arm themselves. Jesus arms his followers in the Gospels at the end. Peter comes with 1 sword, and he says, "No, take 2." At one point, before the arrest episode, in the night before the arrest in the garden at Gethsemane, if you recall. In dress and personal appearance, they are like children. Neither garments nor shoes are changed till they are worn, dropping to pieces, and that